Uh,
Hi, everybody. Welcome to the show. Dave Emmons and a Strange Reality. I was talking to my guest, Mark Olly. He's a regular on the show. I imagine you all know him and like him. We get a lot of good response, and we were talking about things that we can't talk about on air, I guess. I want to stay away from that kind of stuff, but it wasn't bad. It was just what's going on in the world today. But I didn't ask Mark about uh, should big guys wear stripes this away or should they wear stripes this away? I,
I think if you wear the vertical ones, I think you've escaped from somewhere. You know what I mean?
okay.
I think the horizontal ones are better,
Yeah,
more seafaring. They look
yeah,
kind
yeah. But Mark, let me tell you a little bit about Mark. And we got a lot of things going on in the world, and we got a lot of. I want to mention the IMIX organization out of Mexico City. Dr. Federico Vidal. He's in charge of it. Got a lot of scientists involved, a staff that's researching UAPs. And I just told my buddy Mark Olly here that I'm going to refer him to this organization because I'll be giving a lecture September 14th. It won't be public, it'll be for IMEX and it'll be to their scientific staff and community. But I'm joining them and trying to work on enlightening people. And I'm trying to expand that enlightenment by joining organizations like this. And this is a big organization, a lot of scientists involved in this. And I'm not a scientist, I'm a journalist. But that doesn't mean that I graduated with total BS. that's not the that's not the thing. But I do have a journalistic background, but I've also been an experience and everything, and people know that. And I don't want to bore you with all that background. But this guy I like a lot, Mark Olly. He's from the UK, and he's a musician, and that's how we get along. I've been a musician for 45 years. I got a guitar right behind me. You can't see it because I got a backdrop here. Mark Olly is an internationally recognized author, TV producer, presenter, writer, lecturer, broadcaster, musician, and artist. He is visiting lecturer of Winslow Guild and the University of Chester. Mark also heads up his own archaeological unit. Mark met the Rolling Stones backstage while his band Copperworm played in the same building earlier. I told you he was a musician. Currently, he plays drums in the band Wolf. His band will be doing shows this summer in UK. I mean, we'll probably mention that as we open. You can find his books on the Flying Disc Press, Philip Mantle, our buddy there, publishing, and Mark Olly on Facebook, Google Mark Olly on Amazon, YouTube shows, and Kindle books. Don't miss this show. Mark is very entertaining, and he's actually got one of my spots on my website one of the shows that I use as an example, and not trying to use you, Mark, as an example, but
it's all right.
you're the show. You're
Yeah.
entertaining. You know a lot. You're into UFOs and UAPs, and I said that we wouldn't be scripted, but I kind of drew up a script here, and I'm not gonna
Oh dear.
not gonna pin you to the wall, Mark. But Mark, Ollie, tell us about what's going on with you now and what's planned in the near future.
Okay. I'll just correct you on that copperworm thing. It wasn't copperworm I was with when I met the Rolling Stones. There's about 25, 30 years difference in those two projects.
Oh,
But don't worry about it. Don't worry about it.
okay.
Both of those things are true. Copperworm's the band. So if anyone wants to go and check out the album that came out in 2023, and the album's called Pilot, so you can go and find that. It's all over the place. Um, what am I doing now? Well, my next few projects are interesting because I'm working with a chap who is a keyboard player in Arena and Pendragon, Imaginarium, and also has Marillion's old drummer as his drummer. And what he's done is he's come up with a bright idea of building a Viking longhouse. Now, it's a big project.
Hmm.
This longhouse holds about 100 people standing. It's taken about 3 years and he's done it. He's built it. So he's starting to put events on down there. So I'm doing quite a lot of work with him this next year. I think I've got about 4 or 5 different major events booked through the year down there. I work there as a speaker, I work there as an organizer, I'm part of the team. Obviously, I do Viking reenactment and I'm an archaeologist. So, what's not to like? I kind of fit in very well with that scene. So, I'm doing that. There's a couple of books on the way. I'm working on some new books. I'm doing a lot of talks in the UK. I'm on tour September, October, November, and into the first week of December. I've got about 30 different speaking engagements. If anybody wants to know where I am, go and check out Facebook because the adverts are coming up fairly regularly. I think I've got about 4 or 5 in the next couple of weeks coming up. So it's just a really busy time of year. Autumn's always busy. There's stuff always happening. In the old days, you'd be down a hole somewhere with a trowel digging
Right.
for all the summer months. And then
Yeah.
as soon as you hit the autumn and all the trenches fill up with water, you'd go on the speaking circuit. I don't do so much trowel work now. I do get invited on sites and what have you, because it's all up here now.
Yeah. There you go.
Rather than in the hands, it's all up here.
Yeah.
So I'm still doing that, but I'm touring. I'm touring really from now till December.
Wow.
And,
You're going to
and
be
loads of
busy.
loads of podcasts. I'm very happy to be here.
Yeah, you
Uh,
always manage to give me time, and we're musician buddies, we're podcast buddies. We're
it's a rhythm section because you're a
Yeah.
bass player and I'm a drummer. So
Well, I'm
there
a
you go.
drummer. I'm a drummer too, but I play guitar and I play bass. Also, I play all three of them, not at the same time. If I could, I'd be rich. And
Well, yeah, I only play the drums. I only play things I can hit. I've been
oh,
at it a long time though. I started when I was 3, so I've been at it 60 years this December.
okay. Wow, yeah, and you're doing well playing drums. Here the local
Mm.
bands won't hire me because I'm too old, but I can still play. But they just don't like that image. They got to have.
Yeah, well, the answer is form your own band. I mean, I got my old high school band back together. We formed in 1976,
Yeah,
and we're still going. And that's Wolf. You mentioned it in the
yeah.
introduction. We're all old. We're all falling apart at the seams. But we can't give up. Once it's in your bloodstream, you
Yeah, it
can't
is.
stop.
I want to start producing my own intro songs and everything on the
Yeah,
guitar. So I play the guitar and I can probably play a synthesizer too. But let's get into the meat of the subject. And I said it would be going off script, but there's some things that are happening right now that I would like your input.
yeah,
We've had 3 visitors to our galaxy. Oumuamua, 2017,
yeah,
2019, 2I Borisov. They called that a comet. Apparently, they figured that one was a
yeah.
comet. Okay, now 2025 in July, 3I Atlas just popped up on their screens, and they're all watching it, NASA, and it gives off copper, arsenic, and CO2 dust cloud. And the dust cloud's larger than the Earth. They say it's getting bigger and bigger. And today I heard on the internet. I don't know how true it is, but you can only count about maybe 1 out of 10 internet reports. So
Mm.
they said it split in two. They said now it's 2 parts. I never haven't heard that yet.
Mm.
So
Yeah, I haven't heard that from any official sources. As far as I know, it's still together. It's one, identifiable thing that's coming our way. The gas clouds, absolutely. I mean, they've surprised people in the scientific community because of the content. It's
yeah,
not something we've ever seen before. Um, did
there's
you
no.
catch the Elon Musk post?
No, I didn't.
Oh, he thinks it's an alien ship, and there's aliens coming, apparently.
Really? Well,
Yeah, that
he
only popped up today.
yeah, he's an alien, and so he might know. That's what his ex-wife said in the book. But with these 3 visitors, Oumuamua, 2017, Borisov comet.
Mhm.
That's a comet. So they've got that
Yeah.
nailed down apparently. So let's talk about 3I Atlas and how it relates to Oumuamua. And they're about 8 years apart. What's going on there, Mark? What's your ideas?
Right. Okay. Well, I suppose the best place to start, as always, is at the beginning. Um, I think that periodically through time, things like that have either gone zooming past us, or they've blown up in the atmosphere, or in some extremely isolated cases, they've actually hit us. And there's not really any doubt about that. They've got the famous 66 million years ago. You got the famous dinosaur killer, which came in and just everybody goes, oh, we're going to get hit by something. The good news is there's always survival. It's never an end.
Yeah.
We've never actually had anything come anywhere near us that's caused enough damage to switch off the lights and draw the curtains. We've never got to that point. Um, I think coming sort of forward again, but staying in history, I think the famous Tunguska, explosion in Russia, that was an aerial burst. They thought that was a comet that came in and burnt up in the atmosphere, and it flattened everything for miles around. Fortunately, it was in the middle of nowhere. So clearly, things are sort of, paying us a visit from time time to time on quite a regular basis. If you look at time as a big scale, which most people do, these things are coming in. They're coming in regularly, but quite far apart.
Yeah.
So the fact that we've had, what was it, 8 years between these two,
Yeah.
something like that.
Oumuamua was 2017. It's been 8 years between these two. And
Yeah, I,
and
I
of
mean that
course,
one's. I mean that one missed us, and it didn't shower us with debris or anything. And,
right.
and the last few decent-sized meteorite showers have not showered us with debris either. So at the moment we're doing all right. This big one, I don't think is the latest one. I don't think it's tipped to hit us. I don't think that's going to actually cause any impact or anything. What is really fascinating, and this is probably what Elon's focusing on, is the way it's behaving, its content, and what it's putting out. Not sure how they've arrived at the conclusion it's broken into two.
Well,
That,
that was an internet report I read this morning, and it looked like a credible guy that was giving it.
yeah.
You don't know, but they also said there's a light in front of it, and they said it makes its own light, and there's no iron in the dust cloud. No,
No, well,
that's
that's what's interesting. I mean, I believe that somewhere in there is like say oxygen, carbon, whatever. It could have a CO2 content. There could be something like that going on. I think some people are hoping it's what they call a seeding visitor, something that will come along and then it seeds whatever it goes past with the necessary, components for life or whatever,
Mhm.
which could be interesting. Be interesting to see how that works. Because that's the panspermia theory of,
Right.
of life coming from outer space. Um, and again, picking up on what Elon said, what's an alien? How do you define an alien? There might be something in that comet, there might be something within it, even on a microscopic level, microbes, bacteria. It doesn't have to be some, 7 foot tall green man with big arms and big eyes. It can be something else. It's alien in the sense that since we've had the technology to monitor these things, we've not seen anything like it before. This is the first time we're recording something like this that's coming in with all the baggage that's surrounding it, and it's clearly coming in from the outer limits. It's coming in from a long
Right.
way, and most people are just really dying to see what it does. It's
Yeah.
so different.
Yeah, it's supposed to go in behind the sun and disappear from us for a while. And they claim, a lot of these theorists, the conspiracy, well, we can't call this kind of stuff conspiracy theories because most conspiracies work out. About 80% of them turn out to be true. And so,
Yeah,
yeah, it's going around the back of the sun. And they said that's an indicator that it could be hiding from us, and it could be opening up. And then there's a theory that this is a dead spacecraft that's been traveling through galaxies, and I guess since there's no resistance in space, this thing can keep up 130,000 miles per hour, 140, whatever it's going, and it can keep that speed up and not
well,
slow down.
they said something very similar about the previous one 8 years ago. They said that looked like it could be, some form of alien craft, a very unusual shape.
Uh-huh.
It's a very strange shape thing. But interestingly, nobody seemed to get close enough to it or get a decent enough image of it to discern any kind of structure to it. At the end of the day, it just looked like a dirty, great big rock.
Yeah.
So this one, I think it's giving us plenty of time to be prepared. I'd be very upset if people don't spend, a lot of time and effort and money actually having a proper look at this one. Um, Elon should be sending something up, to meet it when it
Yeah.
arrives. That's where he should be.
Yeah,
We
I'm
should be
gonna have to.
looking.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to look at that Elon. Was that a Twitter that he did or
I
X?
think he put a message up on X, I think.
Okay,
So
I'll have to look at that. Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
He's he knows quite a bit. I mean, he's an alien himself. Like his ex-wife wrote a book about him. They asked her, and it's in the book,
yeah.
and that he is strange, and he knows too much. It's just I don't know. I kind of think that he might have some knowledge of ET, and if he says this is an ET craft, then that kind of moves that 40% up to about 50% for me, I guess. So
Yeah,
I don't know.
well, as far as I know, like I say, he's made the statement that he thinks that this could be a visit, from beings from elsewhere. This could be the one. It's strange enough. I have to say, it is strange enough.
Yes.
People have been saying for a long time, though. I think it was they predicted November this year for some kind of alien encounter. Some people seem to be really pushing that. But like you say, there's so much stuff that goes around the internet.
Mm.
Somebody somewhere has probably said that we're going to be, visited every day of the year from now till next year. Who knows? So somebody somewhere's right.
Right.
Um,
We got drones, we got UFOs
yeah,
that are still being filmed today. And they
yeah.
got them out west, they got them out east, and New York and New Jersey just had some more drones. And, so we have at least four or five ET species right here on Earth. And you can't call them extraterrestrial because they probably been here before we were.
Well, I saw a really interesting one today. I think it was America, so I think it's you guys. They've actually got a drone that flies underwater.
yeah, yeah, we
Yeah.
do. Yeah.
So all these guys now who've been saying for years, "Oh, I saw it come up out the sea." Yes, you probably did. All these people that were saying it was rubbish and all the rest of it. No, there are craft now that we've got that can come out of the ocean. We've got them and disappear into the ocean as well.
And they
Uh,
have 0 point energy, and they uh anti-gravity energy, so maybe they're testing that out, and over New York and New Jersey and also UK, they're testing it out there. And
yeah,
it's just strange that maybe it was the ETs that come in to check out our technology, and not us trying to check them out. Maybe that's what it was, vice versa. And yeah,
yeah,
it is strange. They did develop one that comes out of the water. I saw, a practice run of it come out of the
yeah,
water. Yeah,
yeah.
you're right. What do you think about the ETs that we have here? We know they're underground. Actually, Representative Luna and Comer uh, actually come out and said that they have bases here underwater. They alluded to that from their
Yeah.
whistleblowers, and so what are the ETs here? And now, if that craft, Atlas AI, if that comes to us and invades, what are the ETs that are living here? Are they going to fight them? Is it going to be a space battle?
Oh, wow. I think it's all going to end up being in the realms of illumination. I think it's going to be revealing. I think the situation we're in is that there is a lot of evidence that there's stuff going on here, and we're not 100% sure whether it's physical or whether it's interdimensional
Right.
or whether it's frequency based. Are these things like ghosts? Are they coming from somewhere else? I mean, Steve Mira would absolutely love to rise to this one because he is a very much a multi-dimensional theorist. There's no doubt about that at all. On the other hand, if something comes from outer space, then that kind of raises the bar a bit because they're physically coming from somewhere else. So then the question there is the same. How did they get here? What energy source did they use? Are they based on different frequencies? Are they different dimensions? Are they just literally, coming from another place? What's going on? Now those two things, those two areas are going to collide. And that's where you're going to get some form of revelation. We're going to perhaps know for certain if those two scenarios play out in that way, if we end up with something being here and it's definitely here and it's been here for a long, long time, and that comes face to face with something else
Hmm.
that's coming here from somewhere else. I'm not so sure that it's going to turn into a space battle. Human beings, are notorious for being warlike. We always seem to default to the conflict scenario. I don't necessarily think it's going to be a conflict. What happens if you end up with these two sets of different aliens or different species? What happens if they actually get on? Technological exchange, spiritual exchange, all kinds of exchange going on between these two. We could actually just get lost in the middle.
Yeah, yeah, we
You know
could.
what I mean? I
I
mean,
hope I hope they do it high up in the space wars. Maybe they might do that. That's where maybe that's why Trump invented this space force, and so that's what they're working with on that. I I have a question about this, Mark. Oh, Mark mentioned Steve Mira and Mark Olly here on the show now, and we're good buddies. The three of us, we know each other, and we talk about things, and we kind of collaborate on this, and this is why I think Mark would be a great guy in the IMEX organization, that Dr. Federico Vadel, and I'll mention that to them. And I want to talk about how why are they coming here at 140,000 miles, Mark, when most ETs that come and visit, they come through portals and wormholes? Why couldn't they take the shortcut?
Well, again, back to what I just said, differences in technology, difference in methodology. And don't forget, there is at this stage the possibility that this thing that's flying towards us might just be a big lump of rock.
Hmm.
It's just behaving in ways that we haven't seen anything in the universe behave before,
Right.
but that doesn't presuppose the fact that it's an alien ship. It might not be, which then just leaves those two categories sort of parked. If there's no interaction and it just goes flying past us and it's a lump of rock, then it doesn't answer anything. It doesn't give us any access to whatever it is that's already here, and it doesn't necessarily bring anything new to the table either. It just goes winging past. I said it in one of the books I wrote. I think I said it in Europe's Roswell 40 Years Since Impact. If something alien turns up, no matter what it is going to be made of the same stuff that the rest of the universe is made of. You know, Nothing exotic, nothing surprising. There's going to be common elements. There's going to be things there that we recognize. Um, and that's going to be true of this enormous thing that's going flying past. Up to now, we've not seen anything in the analysis, the spectrum analysis, and what have you. We've not seen anything that we don't know. We're identifying things which we're familiar with. Um, it's going to be interesting if the closer it gets, we start to see things we're not familiar with. That's when it starts to really get interesting. I've not seen any reports of that though so far.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah. I had a show last week, Mark, with a Dr. Robert Gross, and he worked with Dr. Avi Loeb, and
mhm,
he worked with him for some years. And he was working on a project with him and off and on, but they're compartmentalized. They didn't meet a lot of times.
mhm,
But he drew out a list of things, 8 things that Avi Loeb has said that never come true. And he's the first one who screams this was an ET craft. This Atlas,
mhm, mhm,
AI
mhm,
Atlas. He said it was an ET craft. So that's what got everybody thinking. He's from Harvard, and
mhm,
he gets a lot of backing from billionaires and everything else. So he's well named, that's for
mhm,
sure. But Dr. Gross was saying that he's been wrong on all 8 accounts, and he mentioned the accounts. Don't want to go into that, but he says that he thinks that it's just a comet. That's what Dr.
mhm,
Gross said. So he worked on a project here, and he ended in 2023. It's I think it was a some kind of, it's called I'll think of it here pretty soon. It's just I'm just fleeting memory there, but he is very sure that it's 40%, that it's that then Avi Loeb come across and said it's 40% chance it's ET. So he lowered
mhm,
that
mhm,
threshold. And then a lot of scientists really went against Avi Loeb because they said, "Well, you're just trying to write another book," So he's trying to create some drama. But I think this thing we're gonna need another 4 weeks maybe to really identify this. Mark, what do
yeah,
you think?
yeah, yeah. Well, like I say, back to your definition of extraterrestrial. I mean, if this thing's flying through space, but it's putting out some form of atmosphere, if it's got atmosphere, if it's got CO2 going on, if there's things happening on this thing that could support life, as I say, there might be something alien about it. There could very well be, because it doesn't necessarily have to be the aliens that we're familiar with. Um, Going back to the conversation we had about the two different things that are going on, is it interdimensional or is it physical?
Right.
There is a possibility that there might be something, riding on the back of this thing that's coming in, that we're not aware of, that we can't see in our light spectrum, that's there from another dimension or whatever. Um, if you've got something that big and that powerful and it's flying through the universe, why wouldn't something want to sort of hop on the back, hitch a lift, hitch a ride?
Hmm.
So I can see where that 40% is coming from. There is just a possibility that there's something else going on here. As I say, we don't fully understand what's happening with this thing at the moment. Probably when it pops back out from behind the sun, we'll know a hell of a lot more then.
Yeah.
Um, but at the moment we don't. So there is that element of, is it or isn't it? But at the moment, I'm kind of leaning towards the 60%, it's a comet.
Right.
That's kind of where I'm going.
Right.
Um,
Me too.
elements alone can't nail it. Just because you've got the composition, you can't say what it is really till it gets sort of within, reachable distance, which it's going to be a while before it does. Like you say, about 6 or 8 weeks before it
Yeah.
gets anywhere near.
Yeah.
Uh,
I've been seeing that they misjudged the size of it. I heard
yeah.
it's 12 miles wide. Then I heard it's 18 miles wide. Then I heard it's 22 miles wide. Now the latest is that NASA thinks it's bigger than what they thought. It's a little bigger than what they've been
Okay.
calculating. So they still haven't been able to judge the total size. And I want to ask you, Mark, since you know a little bit about this scientific stuff, uh, if this CO2 cloud, if they pass close to the Earth, this CO2 cloud is supposed to be enormous. It's supposed to
Mm.
be 5 or 6 times bigger than the Earth. And if it passes close by us and we're hit with the CO2 cloud, what would that do to our atmosphere, Mark?
We're pretty well protected. I have to say that. As a planet,
Hmm.
very few things actually get through the atmosphere that surrounds us. It's magnetic, it's electrical, it's Van Allen belt. There's debris, it's physical. There's so much going on up there.
Hmm.
We're almost like a ball. You have to imagine a ball sat inside a ball. One ball is solid, the other ball is relatively fluid. And in fact, fluid's a good example. When you see layers settling out in a jar, if you shake a load of sediment up, the heaviest stuff comes down, the lightest stuff comes up last. That's how the atmosphere works. We've got all these layers of barriers, that protect us.
Right.
Um, I don't think the CO2 is going to get through. If I'm being honest, um, it's going to be interesting if we sort of get wrapped up in a sort of what would you call it? Like a space atmosphere
Yeah.
bubble,
Like
that's
bubble.
sat around this comet.
Yeah.
If that reaches out far enough to kind of, suck us in.
Hmm.
Um, Another question would be all this stuff that, the comet's carrying with it. Does that indicate some form of gravity or atmosphere within the comet? Why is all this stuff stuck to it?
No, it's supposed
As
to be
it's coming.
arsenic. Arsenic and copper is supposed to be involved in it too, Mark.
Well, yeah, if it's coming through space, though, it'll be towing all this behind it, presumably. But then that begs the question: why is it not dumping it out into space? Why is it not leaving it behind? Um, the idea of sort of intergalactic pollution, and us being sort of eaten up by it, I don't think we're going to find that we're in that scenario. There's too much going on planet Earth
Mhm.
for anything of that magnitude to get through and do us any kind of damage. The biggest problem is if it has split into two, or if it starts to shed debris, then we're going to have to try and keep an eye on where that debris is going. That's always been the biggest threat to planet Earth, without any doubt whatsoever. Anything that's big enough to burn its way through the atmosphere is definitely a threat.
Oh,
So
that's
as long as the big boy misses us, as long as the
yeah,
vast majority of it goes past, I don't think the rest of what we're picking up is going to do us any damage.
yeah. It's supposed to be the size of Manhattan, New York, and if it hit the Earth, it'd be cataclysmic. And
Oh yeah,
we've been through what 6 or 7 different us humans. We've been here 6 or 7 times throughout the millions of years, maybe billion years, and we've had cataclysms that's destroyed our civilization.
yeah,
I wanted to bring that topic up, Mark, because a lot of people are worried about this, this AI atlas.
mm,
They're scared, and that's why I've had a couple of shows on it, and I wanted to talk about it and then throw past you. Let's move on to. We talked about latest sightings, UFO sightings.
yeah,
I heard that your Royal Air Force it has a protector drone. They developed a protector drone that's going to fly over their Air Force bases. But there's been UFO drones being monitored. And there's been no impact yet on the three air bases you have in the UK that on equipment or people. And this was last month in August when
mm,
these drones were sighted over these three UK
yeah.
bases. And this is just recent. So they're back. I mean, they are still monitoring us and what's going on. I don't know if this all comes together with this AI Atlas and what's going on in this interstellar space, what these ETs are up to and why they're watching us, why they're showing us so much of their craft. What's your ideas about that, Mark? And have you heard about those latest drones flying over your air bases?
Yeah, it started off as a spate of drones, which I think we've talked about before, where you had these balls turning up. You know, one turned up at Manchester Airport, they turned up at various other places. And then there's a whole, oh, I don't know, smorgasbord of different drones. You know, we've had everything since flying triangles in the 90s right through to the latest disclosure of these drones that actually come up out of water. So they're everywhere, you know, and people are experimenting with them. What you've then got to do is you've then got to say, okay, drones, we've got drones which are not military. You know, there are lots of other drones now that are up
Right.
there that are being used, film companies, television companies, private individuals, so on and so on. You know, there's a lot of stuff flying around up there. That having been said, the three air bases in this country that I'm aware of that have been buzzed were at the tail end of that previous spate of drones um, over the last sort of about 3 months ago. That was the tail end of that. It does make you wonder. You've got to really look at the big picture here and say, there's so much conflict going on in the world. There's so many people now, you know, saber rattling and with invested
Right.
interests, and you know, it's not just America, China. It's you know, it's Russia. It's you know, Ukraine. It's Europe. It's all over the place. There's loads of people that have got an interest in keeping an eye on what's going on. Um, and some of these drones are stealth. You know, bearing in mind that we've had stealth for a long time. You know, it's been
Mm.
around now probably since the 1970s, 1980s in one form or another. So you don't see these things. You know, they're around. And then if you happen to be unlucky enough to be there when one slows down, you might physically see it. It won't appear on anything else. You don't get it on radar. You don't get it on any other imaging systems. And then it vanishes, disappears. So that kind of thing happening is not uncommon. It has, especially around here. I mean, I've got the city of Liverpool one way, city of Manchester the other way. You know, it's
Hmm.
there's stuff just going on all the time. You know, there's air bases all around the north of England. We've got North Wales, we've got Chester. There's bases up in Lancashire and Yorkshire, and there's a big listening station in Yorkshire actually that's American. So, you know, there's so much stuff up here, technology that we actually, you know, if anything new pops up, we tend to be the first to know. They come and fly it over us and test it up here. You know, we seem to be getting it.
Yeah.
So all I would say is, if it's ramping up, if we're getting more of them, then that might be more reflective of an international situation. Um, I've heard of a lot of drones that have chased UFOs, as indeed planes have.
Hmm.
I'm not entirely sure if the pilots of aircraft are aware of the testing of secret technology, drone technology. I think within military circles, there's a breakdown of communication there. I think occasionally what we're seeing that's being filmed by tornado jets or whatever is secret stuff that perhaps belongs to us, but they're not aware of it. You know, so the pilots are all like ooh and ah and oh, I've never seen anything like this. You know, I can't keep up with it. And there's somebody in the Ministry of Defence going, well, that's, you know, that's a K4539 and it's supersonic, you know, 10 times the speed of sound. And
Right.
we've had that for the last 10 years. You know, they just haven't told the pilots.
Yeah. Oh, Mark, the government wouldn't lie to us, would they?
No, of course they wouldn't. Absolutely not.
Yeah.
Every word of it's true.
I think ever since the late 40s, I think they've had technology back engineered and going on. They got spacecraft that they're
Yeah,
flying around that's ours. They even back engineering in abductions. They know how to
yeah.
abduct because the ETs they work together with them. And there's a couple of ETs or three or four ET races that work with governments around the world. And so and I've met, human ETs, a couple of them, several actually. And of course, I had, got to know one pretty close, and she was in my book. But they're human. There's a lot of human ETs in our galaxy, and so they're not all big monsters or whatever. A lot of people think, oh wow, these are hideous monsters. Maybe they're reptilians, but they're hideous to us. But most of them are. The grays with the big eyes, and they're not scary, but they are scary when you see them or meet them because I know it's scared shit out of me. I have to say that word. Just have to break the break the ice on that.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
I wouldn't be canceled. I don't think on that one.
I hope not. I sincerely hope not. I was just going to say, actually, I mean, in saying that, these beings can equally as well be interdimensional. You know, they may. I conjectured in Crystal Skulls that these are time travelers. You
Yeah.
know, time and space is completely irrelevant to them. Obviously, taking the bigger picture as well. You know, what's the difference between a humanoid alien and, say, an angel? You know, you're splitting hairs really there.
Yeah.
You know, it's the same thing. Um, I think thinking interdimensionally is the answer to that. So that kind of solves a whole multitude of problems. You know, no time, no space. That doesn't matter. They're out of our frequency range. They're coming in whenever they want.
Yeah,
You
they're right beside us, and we can't even really see them unless we have the equipment to see them, like infrared or whatever. I know that's
yeah.
happened to me. Paranormal things happen with these interdimensional beings that are right near us. And what is it? They say that's a dark plasma beings that are invisible, and they could be around us and all over the place. So
And
yeah,
you never,
they're
never see them. Yeah.
yeah, they're there, Mark, and that's it's. I know they're there. I've seen weird things happen, and they do weird things in my car and electronics. But
I think you mentioned that the last
yeah,
time we had an
yeah,
interview. Yeah.
I just had something happen to my car yesterday. I know I put it in park. It wasn't on a hill or anything. It was on a
Yeah.
flat terrain, but I know I put it in park, and I turned it off. I wouldn't be able to turn it off. This car will not turn off if you don't have it in park. It's got to be you got to
Yeah.
touch the brake, and then you're going to hit the button, and it. But this thing was put. It was in neutral, and my wife said it's giving all kinds of beeping sounds. I said I'll have to check it out, and I got in and I tried to start it and it wouldn't start in neutral, and I put it in park and it started, and then a brake come on, in which they tried to check that out, the dealership, because the brake light comes on. It's a two, you got to step on the brake and you got to push the lever down
Oh
to
yeah.
have the emergency brake come on. Emergency brake was on, and this car was in neutral, and I couldn't start it until I put it in park. So I'm wondering what the heck happened there. I just stepped out of the car and we had to get something else out of the car. But no, funny things happen, and I think a lot of people know that that's could be paranormal. It could be these visitors right beside us. And we talked about interdimensional beings the other day, and we talked about also the idea that these ETs are so advanced, millions of years ahead of us, no doubt, a lot of them are, that they use quantum entanglement and quantum physics in order to develop spacecraft. That's why they're seamless. They just
Yeah.
they just come together, like
Yeah.
magic. And
Which actually, ironically, explains why most modern day electronics are affected when there's something like that around. You know, computers,
right,
electronics in cars, mobile phones, anything at all that's electronic. Because you're dealing with silicon, you're dealing with silicon chips, you're dealing with electrical fields, you're dealing with electronics, you're dealing with something which, let's say, 100 years ago wouldn't have been there, and it wouldn't have been a part of ordinary daily life either. So a lot of what we're experiencing, like your experience with the car, you know, if you'd have got into the sort of realm of the presence of some of these beings, you wouldn't have even known they were there because you wouldn't have had anything
yeah,
that would pick that up. Do you
yeah,
see what I'm saying?
yeah.
So now we're actually walking around with things in our pockets, you know, and things on our desks and things built into our cars and all the other technology. And when these things are around, that kind of technology will react. You know, it
Our,
reacts to
our
that.
our consciousness actually draws it in and brings it
Yeah,
fruition.
yeah,
I you know
yeah,
I'm going to move on here. I know I don't want to keep you
yeah, yeah.
out of
No,
it.
it's all right. I'm
Uh,
enjoying this one.
Yeah, but I'm going to throw this one at you. It's not a surprise, buddy. You remember I think you showed me a picture or whatever of an orb right there at Heathrow Airport. It was
Oh,
on
that
the runway.
ball. That
Yeah,
was
the ball.
Manchester Airport. That
Right.
shining
And
silver
okay,
ball. Yeah.
okay. Uh, Now here's the next story I want to talk about, because this is at the top of what everybody's thinking and looking at. Besides AI Atlas, the Buga Sphere, they call it. and it was opened last month. And NASA and Mexico are concerned about the results as they do not align with our frequencies. It's giving off a low hum frequency. They can't figure out the frequency, and they tried to give back a low hum frequency, and it responded. The center of
Mm.
it lit up with a light blue light, and it responded. And it says the hum, the low frequency, it responded with a soft bluish light, infrared, in the center of the sphere core, and it shifted just slightly some of the units in there, and they said the microsphere. It was a microsphere inside a sphere, little spheres within
Mm.
a big sphere, and it gives off a low hum frequency. And if you communicate back with it with that low hum frequency, then it lights up. You can see a light blue light. They have to do this under infrared testing in the lab, but they say it's communicating. And NASA, I heard the story that NASA got afraid of messing with it. They backed off because the frequency was messing up some of their equipment, their computers at NASA and stuff. So it's a totally different frequency than what we're used to dealing with. So I don't know
Mm.
where that's at. It's in Mexico now. I think it's in Mexico
It,
City.
it's about that sort of
Yeah,
size. It's silver, just for anyone that doesn't know, and it's all covered in designs and
right.
patterns, and that actually are reminiscent of crop circles. There's a lot of commonality between the design on it and that. I wasn't aware that they'd opened it because I think they were reticent to do any damage to it, but I know it's been X-rayed and I think it's been CT scanned. And what threw them is that when you actually pick this thing up, it's relatively weightless. But when they actually scanned the void or whatever inside almost appeared solid.
Yeah,
And I remember seeing images of lots and lots of sort of grains. It looked granular, almost like
yeah.
someone had
I
filled part
heard.
of it full of
Yeah,
gravel.
I heard
Um,
one story, Mark, that
mm,
they working with it. It went from 8 pounds to 22 pounds.
that's it. Yeah, they can't get a
Drawing energy or something,
consistent.
Mark. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, so as I say, it looks big and it looks authentic. I don't know enough about the background to it, and I'm also holding my breath a little bit because there is some, as I said, reminiscence of crop circles about it. So it's almost not quite alien enough. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
I personally would like to see something that you just couldn't, even a props department would struggle to produce. This thing looks like an absolutely superb aluminium casting. That's what it looks like to me. But as I said back in the interview, there's no reason why aliens wouldn't use known, materials and known methods, known manufacturing things to produce what they would produce. They're working with the same palette in this dimension that we are. That isn't necessarily a problem. It doesn't make it so that it's not alien. In terms of it responding, I've seen lots of varied reports. I've seen some footage on the internet. I've seen the one about it changing weight. The size remains consistent. I
Right.
just, beyond that, I would love to get my hands on it and actually, have some kind of contact with it to establish, what we're dealing with. I suppose the good news is it's physically here.
Yeah.
That's where we start with this. We're not dealing with, something that's invisible or out of focus, or it was there yesterday, and it's not there now. You're dealing with something that somebody has actually got. I'm a massive fan of that. As you know, if you can get hold of physical
Mhm.
material, that's my starting point as an
You're a
archaeologist.
scientist. Yeah. Scientist has
And
to have
well,
their handle. Yeah. So
yeah, yeah,
also these spheres are seen all over the world. I mean, they're like orbs. That's what
yeah.
people are talking about. They must light up at night. And when they travel around, they must light up with their anti-gravity engineering inside of the sphere. But these spheres have been seen all over the world. So
Yeah, I mean, if I was going to take a wild stab, a lot of the sightings of things which are, fairly well attested as being unidentified objects, a lot of those sightings, there are other little craft that come out,
mm,
sometimes in quite high numbers, and sometimes they drop out and they form patterns. And that orb, that ball reminds me of those smaller craft.
yeah,
Like you say, they do light up, they are visible, they zip around all over the place, and clearly they are out there. They've been filmed. They're there. There's no doubt about it. My sort of thing would be, is this one of them? Can we make the connection between this which we physically have and those things which we've seen? It'd be nice to make the connection. It really would. Not
Ricky
sure.
Ricky Butterfast, I had on the show the other
Mm,
night, just released his video. He talked about this in detail, the quantum physics of it
mm.
and everything. He said that Dr. Stephen Greer used to teach Sanskrit. You know
Yes.
Sanskrit.
Yeah, I know Sanskrit.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And he actually, they communicated with this sphere, the Buga Sphere, with Sanskrit messages and stuff. And
that's yeah.
that,
The designs on it are reminiscent of
yeah,
Sanskrit.
and it responded. It, you know,
Yeah,
give a hum and a signal, a frequency when you did the Sanskrit. I'm thinking, I talked to Ricky and I said, Ricky, you think since most ETs, all ETs probably telepathically communicate. And so what the Sanskrit was to communicate with us humans through their telepathic ways. They knew they had to put it into a language so we can understand it better. So Sanskrit was probably invented by them. Can you tell us a little bit about Sanskrit, Mark, and how that maybe popped into this whole situation?
there are a number of very, very ancient languages that go back a long way. To be honest with you, it's up there with cuneiform. It's up there with things like the Phaistos disc, which appears to be symbolic. There's a lot of languages which are still open to translation, which are the beginnings of what you find in Sanskrit. Now, Sanskrit, I think, is interesting because it does relate very, very distantly, but it does relate to some of the alphabets we've still got today. You
Mhm.
can see a progression of symbolism. So actually, Sanskrit is an interesting one because it is one of the prehistoric languages that have come through that seem to have definite origins. You know, it's older than Babylonian, it's older than Egyptian. You know, it goes back a hell of a long way.
Right.
So I suppose if you were coming here, let's say for the first time in a long time, that's one of those languages that you might resort to trying to communicate in. But if I'm being absolutely honest, as an archaeologist, I can't tell you where the origins of Sanskrit are. It's older than the oldest information that we have available. That having been said, there's probably over 80 languages that have been discovered that have not been translated. You know, when you go back to the origins of language and the origins of text, yes, we know what Sanskrit is, and yes, we know what cuneiform is, etc. But every now and again, there's something that pops up that doesn't quite sit right with what we already know. We are pushing the boundaries back. You know, there are translators who are working on things.
Mhm.
We're not quite at Göbekli Tepe yet. We're not quite at 12,000 BC. We're not there yet.
Right.
But we've probably got language back now to 7.5, 8,000 BC. There are languages that we can decode, and then again, there are some that we just can't. You know, so that's where Sanskrit sits. It's one of those very, very early languages that go all the way back well into the BC period without any doubt whatsoever. Primitive origins, it's still got some relevance for us today as part of the development of our alphabets, but we just don't know where it came from. You know, we don't know where it started.
That's what they're using to investigate this Buga Sphere. And
Yeah.
Mexico has possession of it, of course. And Nassau got involved. Now, does Nassau have the authority to take this project and shut down the information that's giving from it, Mark?
I'd see it the other way around. I mean, look at it from this point of view. Okay, you walk out into a field, you pick up a big ball, you've got this sphere. Who are you going to take it to? You know, it's like who are you going to call? Ghostbusters. You know, it's one of those. There's only a certain number of people on planet Earth that would be capable of dealing with something like that. Maybe Elon Musk would be, you know, maybe some of the other secret services around the world would. But this thing, as you say, this is it's South American, isn't it? Basically, that's what it is. So the closest person that they could take that to, you know, if they take it into Mexico City are going to look at that and go, this is beyond us. The nearest one, NASA. That's the obvious place I would say for it to go. You know, not a million miles away. I don't think anyone's given up ownership. You know, it still belongs to the finder. It's still open to research,
Mhm.
but given the number of options available on planet Earth, there is really only NASA that I would think in that part of the world that you
Right.
could take it to. I don't think it was a case of NASA kicking down the door, going, "Give us our ball back." I don't think they were the ones that kicked it over the
No, that wouldn't
fence.
be fair to that wouldn't be fair to Mexico. They're keeping it in Mexico
No,
City, and they're going to keep it there because they don't want to move it. And
no,
NASA sent their engineers there, so
yeah,
they were there. They're just examining along with the
yeah.
Mexican scientists, and they were working together on this project. But Nassau got scared and got cold feet because the frequency was messing up their equipment, and so they don't know whether to keep messing with it or not. I don't know. That's what I hear. Are they afraid? Are they scared? I
Well,
don't know.
yeah, I guarantee that that phone call will have brought NASA down to have a look at it. There's no doubt about it. NASA will have looked at it, quantified it, measured it, poked it, made it do things or whatever. I don't think it'll have stopped there. I'm quite sure there will be somewhere in NASA, a laptop that's got a complete scientific study of this ball on it and everything that the ball does. But as soon as NASA gets hold of anything, it then falls into this realm of secrecy. It's been that way historically for 70, 80, 90 years. Anything that goes into that void never comes out. But the fact that the ball is still in Mexico City, that's great news because that means it's accessible. It's accessible to other researchers.
Right. That's what they're doing right now to it.
Yeah.
Dr. Stephen Greer, matter of fact, I guess he's involved in it because he taught Sanskrit. He taught that. So
Hmm.
he's pretty knowledgeable. That's what he first started in before he become an MD. Let's talk about Dr. Stephen Greer. And there's no disclosure yet, even from him. I mean, he's talked about disclosing here and there. And how does I just asked you this a while ago? How does quantum
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
play into technology of ETs millions of years ahead of? But what do you think about Dr. Greer, Stephen Greer? Mark, do you know much about him?
Overall, I know he's done a lot of work in a lot of areas that, shall we say, others fear to tread. So it's hats off to the guy for persevering for as long as he has. Um, I like some of his scientific approaches. There's no doubt about that. Um, if I was him, I'm quite surprised that he hasn't gone down the frequency route with this ball. I mean, let's say let's use something people are familiar with, the harmonies of the spheres, the harmonics, the frequency wavelengths of sound that relate to the planets. um I'd have started there. I'd have bombarded it with all different set frequencies, get it into mind you, I am a musician, so I have worked in recording studios, so I would get it in a completely acoustically dead room and then start working on the sound frequencies first. That would have been my point of starting, and then maybe move on to other things. Like you say, they have attacked it, as it were, with light. They've x-rayed it, they've scanned it. I mean, we're talking frequencies. These things are frequencies. So they have done it in that sense. They've thrown science at it. He's a good guy. He's produced some interesting things in the past.
Yeah,
Um,
he's got a
yeah,
documentary he just produced, and it's on YouTube, I think, and I
yeah.
think you can access it for free now. But he's worked a lot. But also, I've heard other things, like these other people who were involved in this disclosure several years back. Uh, Alessandro, whatever his
Mm.
name is, Alessandro something. I forget his name, but Dr. Greer was also involved in it. But I've been hearing disclosure, 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 but we never get it. Dr. Greer talked about disclosure. I've seen him on the internet. That I'm going to
Yeah,
disclose this next week. It never happens.
I've seen something similar today.
Uh,
Actually, yeah, something similar today. Depends on your definition of disclosure, because it's almost like we're climbing a mountain and we're just climbing it one ledge at a time. So we climb the mountain slowly. Oh, look, we're on another ledge. Oh, there's another one. Go up to the next one. So we go up to oh, it's another one, and so on and so on. So I think we're getting more information. There's more information coming out. There's just not enough information, and it's not coming out quick enough. I mean, can you imagine what would happen? Back to our original conversation. This great huge asteroid thing comes parking into our atmosphere, and starts dropping out lots and lots of alien whatever ships, debris, creatures, whatever. We're not ready for that. Nobody's ready for that.
no, no, no.
So it's a case of where are we going? So somebody out there. I mean, I've said disclosure as well. My disclosure is I've got to know it's there, and then I've got to disclose it. I'm not inventing what I'm told. I'm not making stuff up. If I've got a piece of a UFO, I'll tell you I've got a piece of a UFO. If I get the test results back, I'll tell you what the test results are. History has proven that to be the case. Now, I just wish that people like, Mr. Greer and others like that would just take that approach. Don't tell us you've got anything unless you've got it, and
Mm.
then tell us, and then show us what you've got.
Yeah.
That's disclosure. That is disclosure. That's really what we need.
Yeah, Louis
Um,
Louis Elizondo. He's the
oh
guy
yeah,
who
yeah,
headed up the government thing there for a while,
yeah.
but I guess he teamed up with Stephen Greer. But these guys are kind of quiet now. I heard Stephen Greer plays both sides of the coin, government and UFO researcher. He's got the CE5 group in which they
Mm,
go and they get together and they see the actual craft. They can bring them down through their consciousness. Now that's to be proven. I have never been to one of their big gatherings. It costs them money to get involved in that.
mm.
Uh, I want to ask you the last question here, as in summing everything up. And we just talked about the government a while ago, and we both kind of chuckled when we said, "Can you trust the government?" So here's the thing, Mark. Do you think all these things are adding up to a false flag, Project Bluebeam? Could this be possibility, Mark?
It could be. I mean, that has been postulated. They've certainly got the technology to do it. We've had what I would call dry runs where they've projected stuff. They've flown drones up. I mean, the Chinese are whiz at this. They can put things into the sky that are
Holographic.
3D.
Yeah.
And it's a drone swarm.
Hmm.
It's a cluster, and they can do it. They can make it intelligent. They can make it work. They can do all of that. Um, Eminently possible. Eminently possible. Is it aliens? No, it's not aliens. It's quite that sort of trickery is us. All of that is us. As I said, if this whopping great big, latest asteroid or comet or whatever it is, if that decides it's going to, invade us and cause something to happen, that's going to be a little bit out of our control. You know what I mean? People are going to see things and experience things, hear things, whatever. That it's not going to be us. What you need to do, it's a bit like trying to find, a lost ball in a cornfield. You've got to kind of wade through acres and acres and acres of nonsense
Hmm.
just to get to the thing that you're searching for. But I think, there's a lot of human beings out there. We're a huge race. There's tens of millions of us out there. If we're all switched on and we're all keeping an eye on the sky and we're all keeping an eye on what's going on, then we can't all be wrong. Somebody somewhere is going to spot something and it's going to end up being real. It's going to end up being genuine. Doesn't matter where it comes from. It might come from a comet. It might come out of a wormhole in CERN. It might be something NASA's done. Who knows where it's going to come from? It could be time travelers, whatever. But if enough people are switched on and aware and keeping an eye on what's going on, doesn't matter which country, it doesn't matter which government, sooner or later, this issue of disclosure is going to get away from the authorities. It's going to run away because there are far too many people out there with their eyes to the skies and they're switched on. And I think if it's going to come to disclosure, I think that's how it's going to happen.
Yeah.
Enough people are
Yeah.
going to be switched on and find
I,
it.
I think also the extraterrestrials are thinking we're too warlike. We're killers. We kill each other. And also,
Well,
we don't have the
yeah,
consciousness. We only some of us are enlightened to this
yeah.
subject.
I said this in a previous interview. It's all these wipeouts we've had over millions of years. Where different things have hit us, and the number of species, which I believe now is over 30, are now down to just one, which is us. It's not survival of the most intelligent. It's not even survival of the fittest. It's survival of the most warlike. We are thugs. We will protect ourselves. And on that basis, who blames these ETs for staying away? You know,
I've been
we live in a drive-by suburb, don't we?
Yeah, yeah, we do. And I really think we have history all wrong. We've been taught history wrong. We've also been, biblically, there's a lot of holes in a lot of this stuff in the stories there.
Mm,
And I believe in God, the creator, the source. I believe in that highly because there is a source and a creator.
mm,
And I also think when somebody dies, they say they go to heaven, but it's not heaven. It's more of a dimensional type thing that we
mm,
travel to. And I have I might give this a name on maybe my next project. I don't, say they go to heaven. They're going on the other side of time,
Yeah,
other side of
yeah.
time, because we're on a time wave. You mentioned a while ago, a
Well,
linear
yeah,
time, and
yeah. I mean,
and yeah,
Einstein said it that way. He said time isn't linear. It bends and it curves and it does whatever time does. And I think he had this idea that when you die, you just drop off the time
yeah,
scale. You cease to play by the rules here and you go to play by the rules somewhere else.
okay,
Yeah, I'm totally into the divine creator idea. I think there's a lot of beings out there that are bigger than us.
oh yeah,
And then there is definitely the number one. There is a being out there without any doubt that's kind of controlling everything. It's a bit like the end of the Men in Black film where, they have marbles, they're playing with marbles and the marbles are galaxies, and then he
yeah,
puts them all in a bag and it just keeps zooming back. It just gets bigger and bigger and bigger. I don't think that's that far off the truth. I think, that's kind of how it is. But, and I have to say this, we are still unique in the universe. We still haven't found anywhere else that's quite like this. You know what I mean?
yeah,
So in a sense, we're privileged to be here. We're privileged to be able to do this and
yeah.
do everything that we do. And, I'm quite looking forward to the next bit of the journey. It's going to be a blast.
Yeah, we're in a meat suit right now, and then
Yeah.
after our soul goes back and rejoins the creator and the source, then we're going to go somewhere else. We don't know where we're going to go, but a lot of scientists said there is no heaven, there is no hell, and that's just a fear factor that we've been taught through our lives.
Yeah.
We're here
Yeah.
to learn and experience. Well, the R has come up really fast, Mark, and
Wow.
you want to tell us where we can find Mark Olly on the internet and your books.
Yeah, okay, dead easy. Really, really easy. Really, really simple. All the books, I think there are 9 of them, they're all on Amazon. Just go and find them. Dead easy. Type my name in, Mark Olly. You will get the 9 books. They'll all pop up. I think 8 of them are still available, but they're all on there. Go find that on Amazon. If you want to contact me, I'm on Facebook. Send me a friend request as long as it looks authentic. I can see who you are, and it doesn't look like a cloned account. I will accept you. Or you can message me on Messenger because that's on there as well. And then the other alternative is go onto YouTube. And if you're one of these people that loves to binge watch stuff that's happened in the past, all my TV stuff's on there, all the documentaries are on there, everything's available now. It's all out there. So it's basically Amazon for books, YouTube for past produced material, and all the rest of it, and Facebook for me. That's really it.
Okay.
It's that simple.
That's great. And you're not a simple guy. You're very complex. You have a lot of talents, and that's why I like you and I get along with you. And you have a lot of knowledge. That's why I want to pass some of this stuff to
Yeah.
you to see what your thoughts are, because I know you can add a little bit to each and every little
Mm,
theory and every problem that we have with all this new stuff coming at us, and it is coming at us quite
mm.
fast now. It's everything's kind of speeding up and coming at us, and I just hope that we can all start being enlightened, and maybe we can draw good consciousness and bring the ETs in peacefully, and we can all get along. So I want to thank you, Mark Olly, for doing the show. You're great. It's always great. It is a good show, and I love your humor and your attitude about things, and so. I want to thank Mark Olly for doing the show, and I want to thank all of you for joining us on this show, The Strange Reality with Dave Emmons. And we want to thank you and say good night, good evening, or good morning whenever you hear this program.